Throughout this unit, it will be very important for us to learn how to look at primary sources. Why look at primary sources? When you analyze a primary source, whether a document or artifact, you are undertaking the most important job of a historian. There is no better way to understand events in the past than by examining the sources that people from that period left behind for us to see. What is a primary source? Primary sources are original documents, images, or artifacts that provide first-hand or direct evidence concerning a historical topic. Some examples are written materials, speeches, letters, diaries, autobiographies and memoirs, newspapers and magazines published at the time, government documents, maps, laws, advertisements. Images such as photographs, films, fine art. Audio such as oral histories, interviews, music recordings. Or artifacts like clothing, tools, inventions, and sculptures. What are the benefits of looking at primary sources? Primary sources can help you relate in a personal way to events of the past. They help us see from a historian's perspective, encouraging us to observe and infer. Primary sources can also help you develop knowledge, skills, and your analytical abilities. When dealing directly with primary sources, you can engage in making observations, asking questions, thinking critically, making intelligent inferences, and developing recent explanations and interpretations of events and issues in the past, as well as the present. What can primary sources tell us? Historians rely upon primary sources to get the perspectives of people who participated in historical events. Primary sources help historians and you relate to events of the past. These sources help you develop the skills, knowledge, and critical thinking needed to interpret them. And now here's what we're truly after. How do we look at primary sources? In order to analyze a primary source, you need information about two things: the document itself and the era or place from which it comes. You will need both content and context to understand the artifact. When thinking about content and context, you may ask yourself, what is it? What is the period? Who is the author? What do you know about his or her perspective? Who's the intended audience for this primary source? What does this artifact tell us about the subject or time period it represents? Here are the steps to analyzing a primary source. First, observe. Describe. Look at the physical object. What do you see? Second, explain. Meaning. What is the meaning of these things you see? Think about the purpose of the object. What is it for? Third, context. What do you know about the author? Race, sex, class, occupation, religion, age, region, political beliefs? Does any of this matter? How? Fourth, infer. Message. What do you think the author is trying to convey with this source? And fifth, wonder. Questions. What makes you curious? What questions still remain? What additional information do you need to better understand this source? Once you have followed these steps, you will be able to draw some conclusions about interpreting the primary source and summarize what you have learned. You may want to use this sentence frame. Why don't we try an example together? First, I will share some context from history.com and Britannica.com about Hinduism. Hinduism is the world's oldest religion, according to many scholars, with roots and customs dating back more than 4,000 years. Hinduism is unique in that it's not a single religion, but a compilation of many traditions and philosophies. Krishna is one of the most widely revered and most popular of all Indian divinities, worshipped as the eighth incarnation of the Hindu god Vishnu and also as a supreme god in his own right. Krishna became the focus of numerous devotional cults, which have over the centuries produced a wealth of religious poetry, music, and painting. Here's a bit more information about a Mughal emperor of India. Akbar, the greatest of the Mughal emperors of India. He reigned from 1556 to 1605 and extended Mughal power over most of the Indian subcontinent. In order to preserve the unity of his empire, Akbar adopted programs that won the loyalty of the non-Muslim populations of his realm. He took an active interest in other religions, persuading Hindus, Parsis, and Christians, as well as Muslims, to engage in religious discussion before him. Illiterate himself, he encouraged scholars, poets, painters, and musicians, making his court a center of culture. Now let's look at this primary source. This piece of parchment, or folio, shows the Hindu epics of texts such as the Harivamsha, a genealogy of Hari or Krishna, which was translated into Persian and illustrated for the first time during Akbar's reign. Keeping that context in mind, what we just learned about Hinduism, the significance of Krishna, and the Emperor Akbar, let's make some observations. This artifact is called Krishna Holds Up Mount Govardhan to Shelter the Villagers of Braj. Observe. What do you see? What is the purpose of this folio? What story does it tell? What do you know about the ruler who encouraged works such as these to be painted? What message do you think the author is trying to convey with this folio? What additional information do you need to better understand this work? After analyzing this folio as a primary source, you might be able to summarize your thoughts on it. You could say something like, this folio of the deity Krishna holding up Mount Govardhan to shelter the villagers of Braj shows that perhaps the ruler Akbar wanted to convey a feeling of protectiveness over the people of his empire because of the image that he wanted painted and preserved. Of course, you may have more questions about the story being illustrated or the deity of Krishna, which means you're thinking critically and want to know more. I hope these steps help you in analyzing primary sources and thinking like a historian.